top 30 running back rankings heading into week 12 here. This does not include the Thanksgiving guys that just played. But anyway, number one, Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings. And Cook, he's been the best running back in fantasy football this season. This guy's a monster. No one's been able to stop him this whole season. And Cook, I could see a 30 to 40 point fantasy game in this one. Carolina, they have trouble stopping many people. They give up a lot of fantasy points to running backs. And this week, Dalvin Cook, I think he has a huge ball game. So I rank him as number one. Number two, Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. Last week, it was a down game for Kamara. A lot of Latavius Murray we saw mixed into the game. And Kamara, he's been banged up most of the week now again with limited practices and stuff. And last week, maybe he was limited in the ball game with the foot injury or whatever was going on with Kamara. But this guy, he's a dual threat out of the backfield. He's one of the best running backs, and I won't be surprised if he has a huge ball game in this one. And him and Cook pretty much each and every week, it's just a flip-flop who I'm going to put at 1 and 2. Number 3, Nick Chubb, the Cleveland Browns. Chubb, he's came back with 2 great ball games in fantasy football. And last week, he had another good one with a huge breakout run, but it just stunk to see Kareem Hunt get the goal line carry from Nick Chubb. And now Chubb here, he's got Jacksonville coming up. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs, and it won't surprise me to see Chubb rush for 100 to 150 yards in this game. I know Hunt's eating some of the workload, but this Cleveland Brown team is a good ball club on the ground, and that's what they do. They run the ball. Baker Mayfield, they don't want him throwing much. Odell Beckham's hurt. Landry's playing, but he's hurt. So I think Nick Chubb, he's going to get 20, 25 carries, and it won't surprise me, like I said, if he has 100-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. The next, number 4, is Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. He looked pretty decent since he came back a few weeks ago versus San Francisco 49ers. 8 on that Thursday night game. Jones here, he's got a tough matchup, though, versus the Chicago Bears. The Bears, they give up the 2nd least amount of fantasy points to running backs, but Jones, he's a guy I like the workload. I like the offenses in. Jamal Williams, he's only getting 6 or 7 touches a ball game. So Williams eating into his workload doesn't affect me or bother me. So Jones, I think he could have a top 4 game this week. I don't care about the matchup. And this game's a Sunday night game, and I think Jones will do good. Number 5 is Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. We saw him struggle a few weeks ago in this very same matchup versus the Indianapolis Colts. And Henry here, he's a tough runner, big back. He's 2nd in the league in rushing yards. And Henry versus Indy, I think he has a bounce-back performance. We saw him close out Baltimore last week in overtime with that big 60-yard rush touchdown. And Henry, like I say a lot in my videos, this time of the year in the winter months, they hand the ball off a lot to him, and he gets stronger as the season goes on. And the size of this guy and the power he has, he, runs down defenses and tires them out by the 4th quarter. And last week, Henry did most of his damage in the 4th quarter in overtime. And this week versus Indy, I think he'll have a good game. The next guy is James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's been a great surprise this year. I've said it a lot. They like Robinson a lot over there, that they cut Leonard Fournette in the preseason, and it was the right move for Jacksonville. This week he's got Cleveland. Now Mike Lennon, the 3rd quarterback of the season for Jacksonville, is going to start. And Robinson, they're going to rely on him. He's a good running back receiver also out of the backfield. He versus Cleveland, who's been pretty solid, but with his volume and his workload, I think Robinson, he'll have another game where he gets 15 to 30 fantasy points like he does each and every week, it seems like, in that range. So he's number 6. Number 7's Josh Jacobs. This guy's inconsistent. It seems like each and every other week he has a big ball game. Last week he didn't do much, it seemed like, versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and what was more of a Derek Carr game, throwing up and down the field. And this week he's got a good matchup, though, versus the Atlanta Falcons that everybody has a big ball game against, and gashes in the air or on the ground, it don't matter. And Jacobs, he's a little banged up, limited in practice, but he's a gamer. He plays each and every week, and this is a big game for the Raiders to go out there and try and win after losing a tough one at the end versus Kansas City in Week 11. Number 8, Miles Sanders. The Philadelphia Eagles, I said to bench Sanders coming into the week, but Sanders, he's going to get the workload, he's going to get the volume, but I think the Seattle Seahawks defense is going to bottle him up in this one. And now we've seen Sanders the last few weeks, Boston Scott and Corey Clement get goal line touches and steal touchdowns from Sanders, which ain't a great sign. He's not catching the ball much out of the backfield either, which I don't like. But just on volume and a decent matchup that he has, I put him at 8. But if I got him in a league and better options, he's a guy I'm not expecting much from. Number 9's James Conner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. His workload the last 3 or 4 weeks has been very weird. He's only getting 12 to 14 touches a game, it seems like, and he's not getting much catching work out of the backfield as well as Conner. This week he's got a tough Baltimore team. It was good to see Conner last week, though, versus Jacksonville, rush for 90 yards, and this week hopefully he gets the heavy workload again and he could get into the end zone. If this ball game even happens, we don't know if it's going to happen with all the positive tests coming out of Baltimore. Number 10, Mike Davis, another week that Christian McCaffrey's out, and Mike Davis, he's going to get the call. He's got a great matchup versus Minnesota that gets gashed on the ground. We saw the Dallas Cowboys last week versus Minnesota even rush for 150-plus yards on the ground. And this week, Mike Davis, he's a dual threat. He's a good catching back out of the backfield, and he's their goal line back as well. So Davis, I think he could have a top 10 performance, and I think he'll have a good game. Number 11, Chris Carson. Is this guy ever going to come back? Supposedly this is the week he comes back from that mid-foot sprain after being out since week 7 is Carson. Carson, they need him a lot over there, I believe, in Seattle. They haven't looked that good. The offense has been up and down. They haven't scored as many points, and Carson, he does it all. He's a real 3-down back. He could catch the ball out of the backfield. He could block. We know Carlos Hyde's there, and he looked decent last week versus Arizona, but Carlos Hyde, he's no Chris Carson. So if Carson comes back, hopefully versus Philly, I think he could have 80, 90 total yards and a touchdown in this one on Monday Night Football. Number 12, another guy. We'll see if he comes off an injury, and he'll be a big help to his team, even though Calvin Ballage is filled in well for Austin Eckler. Or Eckler, I have at number 12. He's been practicing. In a video a few weeks ago, he said, fantasy owners, week 12, I'm coming back. So here we are. His matchup's at Buffalo, and if he plays, this guy, he's one of the best receiving backs out of the backfield in all of pro football. And this week, he's got a decent matchup versus Buffalo. Justin Herbert, another weapon he could utilize big time out of the backfield. Eckler, he also could line up as a wide receiver as well. So Eckler, I like him this week if he's going to play at number 12. Number 13, Todd Gurley. Like I've been saying for weeks, the numbers have been going down a lot for Gurley. And he's a touchdown-dependent guy. He only gets 1 or 2 catches at most per ball game out of the backfield. And this week he versus Vegas. And I like Gurley's chances of getting 50, 60 total yards and finding the end zone in this one. This game, I think, is going to be high scoring. There's going to be many opportunities for most of these players on both teams. So Gurley, I think he's safe as a number 2 running back in your lineup. Number 14, Kareem Hunt of the Cleveland Browns. Like I said, the Browns, they like to run the football a lot. And this week, I think they're going to run it a whole lot versus Jacksonville, who gives up the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. And I could see him and Chubb both go for 100 total yards in this one. Like I said, Baker Mayfield, his weapons are limited, and he's just not that good. He don't throw the ball much. I know the conditions have been crummy the last 2 weeks in Cleveland, but this one should be in sunny Jacksonville this weekend, and I think Hunt will have a good game. Number 15, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another guy, he's touchdown dependent. This week he versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this ball game, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, back and forth. Helaire, we saw Le'Veon Bell take a touchdown last week versus Vegas from him in red zone territory. But this week, Helaire, I'm not expecting a huge game, but I hope his workload is there where he gets 15 to 18 touches in this ball game's Helaire. So we'll see what he could do. The next guy is Wayne Gallman of the New York Giants. I've been talking about Gallman for a few weeks now, and he's got double-digit fantasy points in his last 4 ball games since Devontae Freeman went down with injury. And Gallman this week, he's got a great matchup for Cincinnati, which a lot of teams score the football and they play well. And Gallman, I could see him once again get you in that 12 to 15 point range. He's a running back here that I got ranked as a number 2 to flex running back easily this week for Cincinnati. So I think Wayne Gallman, he'll find the end zone again and he'll get you anywhere from 50 to 70 total yards. Freeman's out. We don't know how long, but Gallman should be the starter, in my opinion, the rest of the season. Number 17, we got David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. Montgomery here, he's been banged up last week, but now he had the bye week to recover. And this guy, he's going to get the volume and the carries. And he versus a Green Bay team, believe it or not, that give up the most fantasy points to running backs. Mitchell Trubisky, he's back in the starting lineup this week. And I actually think Montgomery's numbers, they could go up a little as well with Mitch in the lineup. Mitch, he's got a better arm than Foles. He makes worse decisions than Foles. But I think Trubisky's a better way to go here for the Bears. And the Bears, let's be honest, they've been struggling now. And their record's 5-5 when they were 5-1. So I think the quarterback change should be done permanently anyway. Number 18's Gio Bernard. He's going to get the full workload. We learned last week Joe Mixon, he's out at least 3 ball games after going on IR with a foot injury. And Bernard last week, he didn't have a good game versus Washington. But with Burrow going down, that team just seemed out of it. And this week, early in the practice reports, it seems like he's not practicing that much. He had a concussion late, but he was limited on Thursday. So if Bernard does play, he's going to be number 18 for me. And if he don't, Samaje Perine, the former Washington football team player, running back, he'll get the start in this one. And I don't know what he would do, but if Bernard plays, he's number 18. Number 19, Salvin Ahmed, the impressive rookie for the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. He's been limited or not practicing at all with the shoulder injury. We saw him last week versus Denver leave the game twice and come back. So I think he's going to play in this one. We know Myles Gaskin, they activated him off IR, so we'll see if he's going to play as well, or he's just going to practice this week and play next week. So if Ahmed plays and Gaskin's not playing, I got Ahmed in 19. He's got a great matchup. He could get you 80 to 90 total yards and a touchdown, I think, easily versus this Jet team. Number 20, Damien Harris of the New England Patriots. This week he's got a ball game, is Harris, versus a good Arizona team. But Harris, the problem with him, he don't catch the ball out of the backfield. So if he don't get 90 yards on the ground or gets like 40 yards and a touchdown, his value is going to be taken. But in this game, I'm ranking him 20. I still see this game being a close game where he's going to get 15, 20 carries in this one. And Harris, when he gets 20-plus carries, he's going over 100 yards, it seems like, each time this season. So Harris, I think he'll find the end zone, and I think he'll get a good workload. So I got him at 20. 21, Gus the Bus Edwards back into the starting lineup this week for the Baltimore Ravens. If this game happens, Ingram and J.K. Dobbins got sent on the COVID list early in the week, so it's down to Edwards and Justin Hill, who I have as a sleeper this week, putting them in my sleeper videos. But anyway, Gus Edwards, he's going to be the in-between the tackle guy. RG3 is going to start this ball game because Jackson also on the COVID list. So a lot of running I see in this one for Baltimore. I know they're all banged up and stuff if this game happens. So Edwards, I could see him getting 15, 20 carries. I don't know if he'll be that productive, but he'll be the goal line back as well. So Edwards, if this game's played, he's a guy I got at 21. And the number 2 running back you could start this week. Number 22, Jonathan Taylor. It was about time we saw Taylor burn back onto the scene last week for Indianapolis versus the Green Bay Packers. But Taylor, it's been a 3 running back timeshare, it seems like, back there in Indianapolis. But anyway, I could see Taylor having a decent game. Last week he had 15 fantasy points. And this guy, he's still their short yardage back. Jordan Wilkins, to me, he's not productive. So Taylor, I could see him find the end zone in this one and get 60 or 70 total yards. Number 23, Kenyon Drake. He found the end zone last week, and him and Edmonds, pretty much a 50-50 split in that backfield. Edmonds, he's going to be the third down back and the passing downs back. But anyway, Drake, he's looked decent now. The last 2 weeks he came back. He's got a decent matchup in New England, and Drake, he's a guy, He's going to get 12 or 15 touches in this ball game, I believe. And we'll see what he could do versus New England. So I got him at 23. Number 24, Nyheim Hines of the Indianapolis Colts. He had a monster ball game versus Tennessee 2 weeks ago on week 9 with 3 total touchdowns. And he had 28 fantasy points in that game. And Hines, he's got the built-in role there where he's getting third down work and the receiving work on long downs. So anyway, Hines, he's going to have a good game, I think, again versus Tennessee. Tennessee's vulnerable to pass catches out of the backfield. And this week, I think it's a good game again for Hines. Number 25, Melvin Gordon of the Denver Broncos. It was good to see Gordon have a 20-point fantasy game last week for Denver. But this week versus New Orleans, I think it's going to be tough sledding for him. He's obviously the running back over there in Denver with Lindsey mixed in as well. And Gordon, though, he's got a tough New Orleans team that gives up the second least amount of fantasy points to running backs. And this week I could see a game where the script's out of line and Gordon's not getting many carries. But plus he's a starter. I got him at 25. 26, I got James White back in the fold here after struggling the last few weeks. But now with Rex Burkhead out for who knows how long after that gruesome knee injury, he got carted off. James White, he's going to get the passing downs work, like I said. This is a game where Arizona could be up most of it, where New England could be trailing, and White's going to have to catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. And it was good to see White get double digits last week in fantasy. So this week I got him ranked at 26, 27, Leonard Fournette. And I don't trust anybody in this Tampa Bay backfield. We saw last week Ronald Jones carry it 10 for 24 yards, and this week they versus a Kansas City Chief team that's pretty good on the ground. Passing is where you get them. Before that, to me, he don't look that good. Jacksonville made the right decision, I believe, in cutting him and putting James Robinson as the starter back there. But anyway, Fournette, we know he's got the built-in third down role and passing downs role. So Fournette, just on that for PPR leagues, I'm going to rank him here at 27. But don't be surprised if he only gets you anywhere from 6 to 10 fantasy points. Number 28 is Chase Edmonds of the Arizona Cardinals. We saw him have a good PPR game last week versus Seattle with 14 fantasy points. And he's another guy. His role's built in as a passing downs back and third down back. He also could line up as a receiver in 4 or 5 receiver sets. He's a good dual threat, is Edmonds. But Drake is back, and he's going to get the short yardage and the goal line carries. But Edmonds, I still like him as a guy who could get you 10 to 12 fantasy points this week versus New England. Number 29, Zach Moss of the Buffalo Bills. The Bills here, their running back situation's a mess. Devin Singletary, he shouldn't be owned in leagues. And Moss, I like him as the short yardage back. But let's be honest, Josh Allen, he takes most of that work and most of those short yard carries. But Moss, I could see him find the end zone in this one. And he'll get anywhere from 8 to 10 touches in this game. So I like him at 29. And number 30, Raheem Mostert. This should be the week. The running back of the San Francisco 49ers. He comes back here versus the Rams. And the Rams, we saw him bottle up that Tampa Bay backfield. The Rams give up the second least amount of fantasy points to running backs. So Raheem Mostert, I don't know if he's going to play. They got Jeffrey Wilson and Tevin Coleman also due to come back off that list. So that backfield's going to be crowded. I don't know what the workload's going to be. I'll give the favor to Raheem Mostert to be getting the most snaps out of the backfield, but I just don't know. So that's why I got him ranked at 30th, and that's the top 30 running backs I'm ranking heading into Week 12.